Okay, welcome back to another episode of The Millennial Entrepreneur. My name's Sina and I love following the journeys of other young entrepreneurs. And in today's one, this is huge. We have Arminder Singh Dhillon on the podcast, the teenage founder of BootBuddy. If the name sounds familiar, it's because he was the youngest ever person in Dragon's Den history to get successful investment, and not only with one dragon, but with three of them. The business and Arminder have been featured across loads of TV channels, obviously. So we talk about his experience on Dragon's Den, some behind the scenes Dragon's Den secrets that I had no idea about, and what life is like once he got that investment. And also about what the dragons are like once the cameras are off. I've always wanted to ask that, so it's good to finally find out. We spoke about how also he went from an idea to manufacturing in China on a mass scale, along with advice for anyone out there who's thinking of launching a physical product idea. It was a really cool experience for me. I learned a lot about a show that I've been watching for many years. So yeah, I hope you like it as well. So this week's shout out, which is a new thing that we're doing. So basically, I said in the previous episode, but I've started a new thing on the podcast where I give a shout out to someone who's just left a written review on Apple Podcasts. Just because I thought, all these people are reviewing the podcast and it's been really cool, but they're not getting enough love. They're not getting enough attention. So yeah, this week's shout out goes to Keita Kandwala, who says, I love this show because it's something that's finally relatable to young entrepreneurs. Super inspiring to hear young founders' stories. So yeah, thank you so much for that message. And if you do want to get featured on a future episode for a little shout out by me, maybe in the next episode, who knows, then leave a written review on Apple Podcasts. I'll be sure to leave a shout out for you. Also be sure to follow us on our new Instagram page. That's where all the new episodes get announced, and it'd be a shame if you miss any. Subscribe as well on Apple Podcasts. And I know this is a long episode, but trust me, it's definitely worth it. It was a really, really cool conversation with Arminder. So without further ado, let's go on with the episode. Hey Arminder, how are you?
I'm good. Good. How are you, Sina?
Yeah, mate, really, really good. Really good to finally have you on the podcast. I've been really looking forward to having you on for a while.
Yeah, thank you very much for having me.
I mean, there's so much I'd love to talk about, because I remember actually a few years ago, way before I started the podcast, I actually watched you on Dragon's Den, which is crazy to think. What year was that? It was like 2016, 2017.
Yeah, it was about I think it was the summertime of 2016. The actual show aired, so feels like such a long time ago.
Yeah, I actually remember pretty well watching it. I'm like, wow, this guy is 15 years old. That's crazy, and he's come up with this product. Because I play football myself, and I always have to clean my boots after a game, and it's just so long. It's just it's really annoying. So I remember watching it. I'm like, that's a decent idea. I don't know how that didn't exist before, and I guess it's something that a lot of people must have said to you. So it's really cool to actually, it's mad to think that you're actually on the podcast now, which is pretty cool. So kind of you had three dragons invest in you as well, which is fairly unique, and it made you the youngest person to get investment on Dragon's Den history, right?
Yeah, so we were backed by Tuka Suleiman, Peter Jones, and Deborah Meaden. And obviously, when I went into the den, I was about 15 years old. So that kind of combination of being the youngest person and also having the title of not just being the youngest, but also the youngest person with the most investors, that was something that was quite unique and cool. As you can imagine, being in that position, it brings all its different kind of problems, and it brings also its different kind of uses, I guess, having three different investors. So that's quite interesting.
Yeah, it was really cool. I remember watching it, and you went in with your mum and your brother, and it was really nice to see the three of you in there. So what was that actually experience like?
Well, okay, for us personally, it's a bit different because I don't think most people who went on the show had quite the experience we had, because where the Dragon's Den is now filmed, so I'll give you a quick story. It's filmed in Manchester, and what happened was, because we live in London, the producers told us that they booked a hotel room for us to stay the night in. So we said, okay, that's not a problem. And they just said, stay in the hotel and be camera ready by 5 a.m. the following day. So,
5 a.m.
yeah, 5 a.m.
What?
Yeah. So just remember
I've
that
never
key
done a
point.
pitch at 5 in the morning.
Well, this is the thing. You got to remember this key point, right? So we get there, and it's about 1 a.m. and my sister rings my mum, and she's hyperventilating, and she goes, "You won't believe what's happened." And what happened was we'd left our suitcase in London with my mum's clothes in it, her makeup, and also our due diligence papers. So we couldn't have even pitched.
Oh no.
Yeah. So this is the day that we were meant to go pitch. So anyway, we're kind of we're panicking now. We're thinking, oh God, this is like not because of oh we can't go pitch, mainly because my mum was so angry, and rightly so because that was all her stuff. So we were trying to, we being my brother and I, were trying to figure out kind of ways to get this bag up, and we couldn't take a plane, we couldn't get a train, or we couldn't drive back because it wouldn't have been viable to get to the studio at 5 a.m. So
Yeah.
the solution was we called an Uber all the way from our house in London. We called an Uber all the way from there to Manchester just for one suitcase. And I remember that
No
night.
way.
Yeah, I remember the night because the guy rang us and he goes, "Are you drunk?" And we were like, "No, we're completely sober. We've just forgotten a bag. We really need it." And the thing is, the guy was umming and ahhing because he was like, "Look, I don't want to drive to Manchester," and we were like, we were
Yeah.
doing everything we could to convince him, and then eventually he goes, "All right, fine, I'm coming." So he drove, bless him, this guy drove all the way from London to Manchester, and we didn't sleep all night. And he got to the hotel room about, well, the bag got to the hotel room about 4, maybe 3:30 in the morning. And then we were in the studio by 5, and then obviously we were rehearsing, practicing on pitch. I can't give away too much of like the mechanics of the show, but we kind of didn't pitch until 3:30 in the afternoon. So before we've even stepped foot into the the infamous den and done all that stuff, we just kind of had the most kind of, I guess, awful start anyone could have to their day. And then once we got in there, it was just it's quite intense because you have the dragons obviously sat right in front of you and they're asking all these
Yeah,
questions.
yeah.
And if you're not, if you're not prepared, then you're pretty much screwed. But if you also like what happened
Yeah.
to us, if you're just kind of thrown off already, then it's just like wow, yeah, it makes it even harder.
Yeah, like you got like no sleep.
Yeah, pretty much. And then I remember as well after that we stayed around because the Dragons wanted to meet us, so we had to wait for other people to finish pitching, and we didn't even leave Manchester until about 8:30 in the evening.
Mate, that's crazy. I didn't know. Mate, that Uber driver's the unsung hero.
Yeah,
He doesn't
no,
get enough
seriously,
credit, this
that
guy.
that Uber driver, I remember that day because the cab cost was I don't know, I think it was above £400 or something like that. And obviously,
Yeah.
then we gave the guy a tip as well because he'd done us a massive favor. Um, but yeah, that guy, he saved us pretty much. The embarrassment of going, oh well, we haven't got the paperwork, we haven't got this, we haven't got that.
Yeah. Yeah, that's mental to think. And I guess kind of in the long run it worked out because you did actually you got investment in the
Yeah,
end.
pretty much.
But
That's
yeah.
probably the best investment we've made in terms of that
Yeah.
money.
Man, I don't, that's quite a funny story. I haven't yeah, that's quite cool. And so what actually like I'm interested about how the sort of like experience works. So like what is the actual application process like to get on Dragon's Den? Is that what you wanted to go on the whole time, or was it kind of just like something? Was it an option to go on?
No, I to be honest with you, so whenever I tell people this, they're shocked. But we actually signed up for a laugh. Because what happened,
Yeah.
and it sounds really terrible saying that, but no, what happened was everyone always used to say to us, "Oh, you should go on Dragon's Den. You should go on Dragon's Den." And then one day we kind of did some research on it, and there was an application form, and so we'd actually applied, but there's applications that go to different cities within the UK. So I don't know how, somehow applied to the one in the Manchester group who deal with all the applications. and they obviously then passed it down to the people in London, who actually got in contact with us saying, "Oh, we noticed your application," but this wasn't actually until 12 months after we had submitted the application. So we kind of,
Really?
yeah,
Wow.
we forgot about it all, and then they'd given us this, follow up email saying, "Oh, hey, are you still interested?" And we thought, are we interested? We kind of did a lot of umming and ahhing, and then we just thought, okay, well, what's the worst that can happen? We might as well go. Anyway, so we met the lady who was considered, I guess each person has like a handler in the sense that they're the ones who gets them into the process, into the show, all that kind of stuff. So our lady show, Natalie, really lovely lady, met her once or twice, and then she goes, "Okay, I've organised this time and this room in our recording studios. I want you to come and film a mini pitch introducing yourself to the producers." So we okay, so we went along, did this pitch on a camera, waited a few months, and then Natalie goes, "Okay, right, I need you to come back in because we're going to brief you about what's going to happen now." I went, "Okay." So we go back in and we had to sign all these forms and documents, and they had to do due diligence on us to make sure that we weren't, like rogue traders, and we weren't going to run off with the dragon's money and all that kind of stuff. And we were who we said we were and all that kind of stuff. Once we'd done that, they said, "Okay, guys, what you need to do is keep yourself pretty much open for the next couple of months, and we'll tell you a date and time, and you've just got to go there to do the pitching." And we were like,
What? That's such
"Okay,
a weird. What?
yeah, yeah, yeah." It's a really like they keep you on your toes a lot. So anyway, so we went, "Okay, cool, not a problem." A couple of weeks passed, still nothing. A month passes, nothing. And finally, another email saying, "Okay, guys, we need you to come up to our studios and do the filming." And then, yeah, that was it really. Then the whole story I just said before about the Uber and all that kind of stuff happened. And then we went
Yeah.
into the den
Yeah.
itself, and then yeah, you could. So the whole process is actually really, uh, really different at each stage.
Mate, it sounds long as well.
Yeah, yeah, it's something that's not a joke. It's really quite a lengthy process. I mean, if you're not going into it like seriously, then you can shoot yourself in the foot. I mean, we didn't go into it seriously initially when we sent off the application, but when we started doing things like doing the mini pitch for the producers, that's when we were like, okay, actually, this is getting real now. It's not kind of a bit of a laugh and joke that we thought before.
Yeah, yeah. So how long was that actually, like the whole process of you actually sent off your application to the point where you got like you actually were in front of the dragons? How long did that take?
Oh, I couldn't even tell you. It was definitely over way longer than 1 year.
That is crazy. That is so
Yeah.
mental because your business must have totally changed in that time frame.
Oh yeah, 100%. Yeah, because we within 1 year, drastic changes were happening because at that stage we were just starting off. So we were, constantly making different changes every day because we hadn't even, it's not like the Boot Buddy was a brand that people recognized then. It was something that was a completely brand new concept. I mean, it still is in the sense that the idea hadn't, been thought of before, and it's still unique in that sense. But when we first started, it was yeah, it was really different actually. And obviously, after the whole year had passed, we then had to reevaluate what we wanted to ask the Dragons and how we were going to pitch and kind of what we could present as figures, that kind of stuff. Yeah, it changed everything quite a bit.
Yeah. Before we kind of move on, I'm a bit conscious we actually forgot to do this, but for people who don't know, what actually is Boot Buddy? I just totally forgot to ask you that.
No, no, that's fine. It's fine. So the Boot Buddy essentially is a portable cleaning device for any type of muddy footwear. So how it works is you have a bottle that you can fill with water, and that holds the same amount as a Coke can, which I believe is 500 or something around that region, um,
Yeah.
milliliters. And what you do is you take the back end of the boot body, which has a scraper to remove large clumps of mud, And once you've done that, you unlock the head at the front, which is a brush head. And once you've unlocked it, you can squeeze the boot buddy itself to allow the water to flow out. However, once you lock the head of the boot buddy, no water would leak out because it's been designed so that you can throw the boot buddy into your kit bag or into the boot of your car, and it can be rolling around and no water will leak out everywhere. Because that's like a big problem with these type of products, because everyone kind of overlooks the importance of the portability and kind of actually making the product leak proof in a sense. So
Yeah.
that's the boot buddy, and that's how it works essentially.
All right, sick. There you go. So let's go back to the Dragon's Den. Basically, so what actually happens like directly after? So you got the investment. So what actually happens like directly after? Like literally, you shake hands and you go back into the lift. What's next?
Well, you just have a massive party.
Really? Okay.
No, I wish that was the case. That's far from the reality. The reality is, once you walk out the den and you go back into that lift, you then have to deal with more due diligence from the dragons, because even though the BBC do their own kind of due diligence, the dragons have to do it themselves, because obviously it's real money. It's kind of their name and their reputation. So even before it gets aired or anything like that, the dragons do their own background checks on the business, on yourselves as individuals, and all that kind of stuff, just to make sure again that you're not going to run off with their money, because in the past there have been candidates who have unfortunately done that to the dragons, where they've taken the investment,
Well, they just like
kind
run
of
off.
deliberately. Yeah, they've deliberately tanked the business, withdrawn all the funds from it, and then just disappeared. Like that's happened before.
What? It's
Um,
mental.
yeah, so that's why they do their due diligence. But obviously with us, because we're not those type of people, and we actually went in there seriously as a serious business. We kind of breezed through that process because they saw that everything was up to date, and we didn't have anything to hide. So when they kind of did their checks, and they kind of saw that we had good intentions, then they were like, okay, yeah, cool, this is great. And then we just had to sign the contracts and things like that.
Mm.
Obviously, with signing contracts and things like that, it always takes time, because both parties, in this case, there were three dragons and us, so there's a lot of different people who have to read the contracts and make sure they're happy with what's going on, and what they're signing. But once you do that, then it's then it's kind of you then get the go ahead from the BBC, and they're like, okay, this day your episode should be airing, and then you kind of work around it and do a media push.
Okay, so what TV channels were you on and stuff?
Yeah, I think we managed to. So obviously BBC Two, um, for the Dragon's Den, and then the follow up show, the Pictures to Riches, and we'd also gone on ITV a couple of times. I was on London Live.
Got roasted by Piers Morgan.
Yeah, got roasted by Piers Morgan, which was fun. I'm trying to think, because to be honest with you, I never really. It sounds silly, but I never actually really remembered too much of the TV interviews. It was just kind of a case of I just went and did them.
Yeah,
Um,
I get you.
but yeah, I think those are the ones that spring to mind.
Yeah. When you were actually in, because I remember listening to you on another podcast, you actually said, and this kind of surprised me for a sec, but then I was like, yeah, that makes sense now that I think about it. But you were actually there pitching for, I think you said like 2.5 hours, but when you actually watch it, it's only like 10 minutes.
Oh yeah. I mean, it was a very long process, which is quite. I mean, and people forget as well. The dragons are investing their own money. It's not monopoly money. It's real cash. So they're going to have to kind of delve into the business. And now, obviously, with the show Dragons Den, it's an entertainment show. Like it's for viewers' entertainment. To see
Yeah.
people go in and ask for like ridiculous sums of money, and make ridiculous claims and all those kind of things. But when it gets to the actual interrogation part of really delving into the business and seeing what there is to it. Obviously, that doesn't always make for great TV. So the fact that it's edited down, it does make sense because obviously, the BBC are trying to put something out there that everyone's going to find interesting. Because I don't think many people would find, cash flow forecasts or kind of, talking about a balance sheet, riveting stuff. It's kind of
Yeah.
it's, but it's something that the Dragons have to ask about and have to look into because at the end of the day, it's a serious investment
Yeah.
that they're making.
Yeah. 'Cause I remember watching it, and so you were like 15, 16 at the time, and like it was like a minute in. I don't even think that you said anything. I think you might have said like a couple words, and then the next like scene was, yeah, Arminder has to leave because he's like 15 or 16. And I was like, okay, I don't really get that. But so you weren't actually like when I actually watched the back, you weren't in it for a lot for like most of it.
Yeah, so I was in there a lot longer than 5 minutes. But unfortunately, because of the way things are edited, it just looked like I kind of walked in,
Yeah,
said hello,
you
walked
walked
out, and
in
then
and
I
just
walked back
left.
in. Yeah, that was um that was quite funny actually, because a lot of people went after the show. They said to me like, "Did you even do anything?" I said, "Yes, I did, but it's been edited out."
Yeah,
So that was quite funny actually. But yeah, that did really happen though. I did actually have to leave. But I'm glad I did because I think it would have allowed the Dragons to be comfortable enough to really rip into the business and kind of say things that were truthful and potentially could have obviously in their eyes potentially hurt the feelings of a young kid. Now, obviously,
yeah.
that's not a great position to be in if you're asking that person to look to invest in you, because if they can't feel comfortable enough critiquing the business, then they're definitely not going to invest.
Yeah, they don't want to make you cry or anything, do they? They'd feel
No, yeah,
bad.
exactly. I think that would have been absolutely humiliating on national TV if I just
Yeah,
started breaking down in tears.
would have been prime
That would have
TV
been
though for entertainment.
yeah, yeah, that's true. I could have had a talk show by now. Could have had, made a spin-off of it.
Yeah, yeah. Although like the internet's not a very nice place, I feel like a lot of abuse would come in if that did happen. I don't know, maybe not. Maybe it would have
Oh
gone the other
yeah,
way. But yeah, it's probably good. It's probably
yeah,
good in the long run because they were comfortable asking all those questions.
yeah. No, definitely.
So how like so you're with those three dragons. How much exposure do you actually get to them? Like how much interaction do you actually get with them? That's what I think a lot of people want to know that.
Okay, so this is the thing. It's weird because each dragon has a different style. So Tuka pretty much you can like Tuka's the most accessible. You can pick up the phone and just ring Tuka, or you can just drop him an email, something like that, and say, "Look, can I please see you some point during this week?" And he'll be like, "Yeah, no problem. Just come to the office and we can have a chat." And yeah, so Tuka's like super accessible. Uh, Peter is not as accessible. However, he does have someone who is his head of investments, who is like really useful. A guy called John. He's like really lovely. He knows a lot of different just pieces of information because he's worked with different investments and things like that. So he worked with Levi Roots, like one of Peter's most famous investments. Um, so he's worked closely with Levi and that brand and helping building that brand. And then Deborah, we see kind of, I guess, once a month, I guess you could say, or in terms of in person. But otherwise, she's quite, like you can just drop Deborah an email and you'd get a response back, kind of thing. It's like
Yeah.
if you make the effort to reach out to these guys, there are like ways of them getting back to you, if that makes sense. It's not like kind of, you drop them an email and you never hear back like that. That rarely happens.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. What are they actually like when the cameras are off?
Oh yeah, they're really nice people. Really nice people. I think one thing that people don't realize is, especially with like, I think I guess Deborah's known for it the most because you see it on the Den is like Deborah's always the one who's like who really gets stuck in with the questioning and asks like really intense questions. Um, but yeah, no, they're really lovely. Like they're just normal people. Well, as strange as it sounds to say it, because people assume that they must always be like 24/7 like they are on the camera. But no, they're actually yeah they're quite normal in the sense that you could just have a conversation with them and that's it. It's not always business. Okay, yes, majority of the time we do talk, we always end up talking about other businesses and kind of future ideas and all that kind of stuff. But that's natural because they're investors, right?
Mm,
But
yeah.
yeah, I think a good example is when they filmed the follow-up show in my parents' fish and chip shops. Behind the scenes, you just had Peter Jones drinking a cup of tea, leaning up against the skip. Now, like that's quite you wouldn't expect that from someone who's worth 500 million,
Mm,
right?
yeah.
I don't know.
Yeah.
Like most people would just kind of assume he wouldn't be that kind of chilled out or normal. I guess like that he doesn't really mind drinking a cup of tea in the back of a chip shop kind of thing. It's like even he was serving customers. Actually, that was quite funny.
Yeah, yeah, I saw that they actually recorded him doing that, but I thought it was just for the cameras. I thought it was just I don't know. I thought it was just a joke that he was just doing.
Yeah, no, yeah, no. He actually insisted on doing that. It was quite funny.
Oh, fair enough, fair enough. I think we kind of forgot about this. That so you actually work. I don't know if you still work there, but like your parents and stuff, like they own you. You come from like a fish and chip background.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. We do. Yeah. So we've got shops in Battersea. So we used to have another shop in Fulham, so we had like three, which is nothing crazy, but we kind of downsized, so now we have two shops. But yeah, we still own those businesses and we still run them. Like you'll still find me in the shops working with my mum and dad, kind of in terms of helping them out, like running the business while still doing Boot Buddy and obviously still doing university as I'm in. Well, I just finished my first year. But yeah, so I'm kind of yeah. It's funny because people don't expect that when I say to them I still help out in the shops and I'm still there because people just assume that I'd do everything I could to distance myself from them, after being, but it's true though, like after going on Dragon's Den and whatnot, people just assume that I would be like, oh well, I don't need to go there because I've got my own business and this and that. But it's like
Yeah.
it's far from it because to be honest with you, the fish and chip shops are actually what taught my brother and I especially the kind of basics of business and how to run something that requires a lot of effort. Okay, yes, they're in
Mm.
two completely different fields, but there are still common challenges that you face with any business.
Yeah, for sure. It's pretty cool that you still work there. Um, I remember on Dragon's Den. I think this is like the last question, then we'll move on from Dragon's Den.
Yeah, that's
But
all right.
I remember your mum like talking about how she invested like £250,000
Mm.
into the business, and I remember like all their jaws like dropped instantly, and I was like, yeah, and then because like normally when that sort of stuff happens, they don't invest or like there's certain things that the dragons just don't like, and it's just like well, that's one of them. Another one's like a high valuation, like overly high. So
Yeah.
like all that stuff, were you kind of like really apprehensive of them? But in the end, they did respond all right to it.
I think the reason why because we weren't really apprehensive, and I think the reason why is because when obviously you don't see the whole pitch, but there was a lot more of a conversation around that topic because I remember I got to watch some of it when I was inside the den, and that bit of the conversation came up, and I remember watching it on this screen with the other producers. Um, but kind of the dragons weren't they weren't don't get me wrong, they were shocked, but they weren't too shocked because they realised that with our pitch and the way we came across and the way we kind of explained things, they knew that it wasn't a case of we had just invested this money willy nilly because a lot of businesses that go in there, people might just start chucking money at it and really get into a position where they're in the red by a significant amount, but they don't know how to claw it back or how to make it work. And I'm not saying we do, but I think what gave the Dragons a bit more confidence was the fact that, it was my mum's business background, how she kind of took her experience in business and her confidence to invest in us, and the fact that we were part of that kind of collective. We had some experience, and we knew what we were doing vaguely, but with the help of these guys, we could expand the business to something much greater.
Yeah, 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 for sure. Right after you went on Dragon's Den, how was life like for you? I know like that was meant to be the last one, but
No, no,
fuck it,
I'm
whatever.
cool. I'm cool with it.
Yeah. So what was life like like afterwards compared to like before?
To be honest with you, it was pretty much the same. I mean, the only difference was now and again, and it actually, to be honest with you, I'm surprised myself. 4 years down the line, it still happens, but you used to have, okay, a lot more closer to the time. I'd have people recognize me, and that was kind of, I didn't like that, because sometimes I used to
Really?
call.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, it still happens now as well, and it's not like the thing I don't like is when people come up to me, and it's happened many times, and they ask questions and things like that. That doesn't bother me. I'm quite like a relaxed person. Like, if anyone has come up to me before, even at speaking events, and they ask different questions and things like that, I'm like more than happy to give advice and like chat to people. That's just me. But what I never liked was when people used to ask really like probing financial questions. So, for example, I was what this is so 2017, so this is about a year after the show, right? And I just gone to the local shop to get some milk, and a random woman, I literally, I'd never met her before, and she just grabbed my arm and spun me around and goes, "Oh, you were on Dragon's Den, you were so and so," and I was like, "Oh yeah, 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 that was me." And then she was just asking all these questions, so I was just answering all these questions and whatnot. And then she just, but the thing is, what was really off putting was the way she just kind of shouted as well. She was like, "So you must be really rich," da, da, da. And I was just like, "Look, first of all, that's not true." I was like, I wish I was. And I was just like, I just kind of just, I obviously at the time, and whenever that happens, I just kind of laugh it off. But really, I don't like it because I feel like people don't realize the reason why we started the business and why we do it. It wasn't just for the financial gain, I guess you could say.
Yeah.
It was purely because the
Yeah. Yeah.
idea was it was there to help people, change their ideas, but also because I guess in a public setting like that, I don't really like uh you know that kind of attention being drawn, and I think
Yeah.
that was even still today, like some I still get that. Well, for example, I was in a restaurant with my mum and dad, and then throughout the duration of the meal, there was this other table, and they just kept staring at me. And now I don't mind, like, because at the end of the day, it doesn't bother me. But I just found it a bit off-putting. Do you know what I mean? Like, just to have someone just staring
Yeah.
at you and
You
like
just feel like you're being like
whispering.
watched, don't you?
Yeah, so like even when we go to, like, I don't know, for example, when we went to get my mum a new car, we went to the showroom, and none of the people were being helpful, and then one person, and it's like a common theme. They look on their phone because obviously they Google to make sure it's you, and then they start chatting to everyone else, and then all of a sudden everyone in the whole showroom's like your best friend, and it's like I don't mind, like, whatever, cool, but it's just like,
Yeah. I don't.
yeah, like I kind of, I prefer when people are a bit more normal about it, and don't kind of just act odd, if that
Yeah.
makes sense.
Yeah. I don't really rate that. I don't really. Yeah. Don't really like that at all. What about on like social media and stuff?
I mean, in terms of social media, I think I so for the business, in terms of the business's social media, yes, the following grew, um, which I'm always happy with. Um, in terms of like my personal social media, I kind of just I yeah, I tried my best to hide it, in the sense that, not because I'm a recluse or anything like that. I just didn't. really think it was appropriate to put myself out in the public eye, especially when you have at such a young age. And I'm glad I did it. You get a lot of internet trolls. Now I think at a young age, if you did put yourself out on social media like that, I mean at 16, and you had those kind of comments being left on your pictures, or just constant rubbish coming through, because I still get that
Mm.
now, and I used to get it a lot. Um, and that was even with my account being hidden. So like not me promoting my own account saying, "Oh, go follow me on, Instagram, Twitter, whatever, blah blah blah." Yeah, it's just yeah, it just kind of it just gets a bit draining, I guess, having to constantly go through the same old messages and see the same old kind of rubbish being sent to you.
Yeah. That's so weird to think though, because like you were, I mean, like talking about Dragon's Den, you were only on TV. I know you were in there for like far longer, but you were only in there for like, I don't know, 5 minutes or something. You weren't in there for that long.
Yeah,
And
exactly.
even then, you're getting like internet trolls. I think that's mental to me.
Yeah, I mean, I think it's just I think that's just a telltale sign of like people in general. I think regardless of what it is, or who the person is, there's always going to be someone who has an issue with it, and they're always going to voice their opinion. So, I mean, at the end of the day, that's just kind of, not to sound like one of those people who plucking out cringy quotes from the internet, but that's just life. You're not going to get away from it. If people want to put their opinion out there, whether it's positive or negative, they're just going to put it out there anyway.
Yeah, yeah. That's just life, boys and girls. Okay, so let's move on from Dragon's Den and all of that. If you only tuned in for Dragon's Den, yeah, now's probably a good time to switch off. But for the idea, because like we had a physical, we've had. I want to get more physical ideas on the podcast. So a lot of them have been like software, computer based, but this
Okay.
sort of stuff interests me as well. So how did you go from your like prototype, which like in all honesty, it was literally just a bottle with like some bristles on the end. I thought it was quite funny, but it worked.
Yeah,
That's
no,
the
it
thing.
was. Yeah, yeah, it was.
Yeah.
You're
So how'd you go
100%
from
right there.
that?
Yeah.
So how'd you go from that into like a actual like physical product that you could show to people, you could sell? Like how did that happen?
So I think the way in that I was lucky was I had a family friend, who's a 3D, like, sorry, not 3D. He's a basically he does like 3D prototypes, and he does design work. And he's really good at what he does. A guy called Matt Hurley. I'd recommend him to a lot of people if they have any ideas or things like that. He does phenomenal work. But so Matt was a really good family friend. We kind of went to him and said, "We have an idea. Would you mind helping us out?" So he worked with us. He did a lot of the CAD, and he made us our first 3D prototype, uh, from the crude plastic bottle version that I had that you mentioned before. And yeah, we tested that, even though that prototype was nowhere near even being usable. It was just purely aesthetic. We still used it because he made a couple of other variations that could be used. But obviously, like any prototype, it wasn't like you could use them, regularly. However, that being said, one of his prototypes we did use to clean over 70 pair of boots with, I think, a liter of water, or a liter and a half, something like that. Um, but yeah, anyway, sorry, I'm sidetracking now. But we took that prototype and we did some research online for local plastics factory, like people who could help us get this into manufacturing. Um, and we found like a family business as well, which was important to us. So these guys
Yeah.
who we worked with were not too far from us. They're based in Oxfordshire, and we just went to their factory, showed them the prototype, had a kind of conversation with them. It wasn't really too formal. Obviously, it was somewhat formal because it was the first time meeting them, but it wasn't like sitting down and saying we want X amount of units by this time, whatever. It
Yeah,
was kind
yeah.
of working with them because obviously this idea had never been done before, so it was all brand new. And these guys are fantastic as well. But yeah, so they're a family based factory in Oxfordshire, and they essentially helped us make our first runs of Boot Buddies, and then they got us to the one that was not just a prototype, but actually ready for production. And we did our first run with them. The only problems we had was the fact that because it's UK manufacturing, the cost was just astronomical. Um,
Yeah, that's what I was going to ask you.
yeah, but I mean, the thing is though, the costs, yes, they were high. So we had to retail the products originally for about £25,
Okay.
um, which is quite a lot. And there were obviously perks to it, such as being made in the UK, and the quality was phenomenal. Like there's no way around it. That the level of engineering and kind of quality put into that boot buddy was, yeah, it's fantastic. And we managed to replicate that as we went along, so that they really set the bar quite high, which was amazing.
Yeah.
And then we kind of slowly moved from them to a European factory,
Okay.
because you know the UK was just too expensive. So we thought, okay, let's try
Yeah.
Europe. It's slightly cheaper. The only problem was when we got our supply from them, the product would come all in different pieces. It wasn't actually fully assembled. So you'd have the boot body was broken up into roughly five parts, which we'd have to assemble ourselves once it came to us, landed in the UK. Um, so that was a bit of a pain, because if we had a big order, it meant that quite literally my brother and I, even my mum or whoever we could muster around, would come help put these products together, so we could send them
Yeah.
out. But
It's like Lego.
yeah, pretty much. It was like, yeah, painful Lego, because it was actually quite intense, because we were like, if we mess up a product, that's it. It's just gone straight in the bin. So
Yeah.
yeah, but then we also then had a little something called Brexit that got in the way, and
Oh,
then
I'll
we
tell
just
you what though, I kind of miss Brexit, all the stuff going on now.
yeah, yeah, I think I agree with you there. Brexit was a lot easier to deal with than this.
Yeah.
Um, but
But yeah,
yeah,
carry on.
so after Brexit was announced, and things in Europe started becoming a bit tricky, we just went, okay, the time is now to move to China, I guess. And since then, we've been working from China. We've worked with different factories in China, and we're yeah, we're actually quite happy with where the product is now. It's still got the very high quality that we've always intended it to have since the day we used the UK factory, but
Yeah.
the price point is just, yeah, it's nowhere near as high.
Yeah, yeah. Before we talk about China, because I'm kind of interested in that as well. Before we talk about that, when you approach those like UK factories,
Mm.
like I'm just thinking about it from like say if another person listening has an idea for a physical product, do you have to go to them with like something to show them, or can you just go to them with an idea? Like what stage were you at when you actually went to those people?
Well, this is the thing. You can go to them with the idea. So essentially, you could do what I did with uh, our family friend Matt Hurley, which is we did all like the CAD work together and looked at different variations and different design ideas and things like that. And CAD is quite useful because it's essentially having the 3D drawings on a digital format, so it can be edited, and the product can be shaped, and alterations can be made quite quickly, rather than the old school physical drawings. Um, Now
Yeah,
you can just go to the factory and get them to do that, but I feel like if you can go to them with the CAD already, or something which has some clear cut design cues and you know uh, mechanical aspects to it, where they can just pick up on that drawing or CAD and then make changes, then it makes the process a lot quicker, essentially.
yeah, yeah. Yeah. Is the CAD? I'm not very familiar with this. Is it literally just a like computerized drawing of your product?
Precisely, and it the difference is you can actually make the image um, basically you can so when you make the image you have to draw it and then you can make it three-dimensional afterwards, but you can make
Okay.
each aspect of the product fit to measure, so you can put in certain measurements and make certain parts of the product as long or as short as you like, or as wide or as narrow.
Okay.
It's kind of it's used by architects, for example, when they design buildings. So you
Yeah,
kind
yeah,
of
yeah.
yeah, it's useful, really in-depth detail, and it just helps the manufacturers see what they need to do, and see where certain things need to finish, and how the product will be made and all that kind of stuff.
Okay, cool. But like your family friend did that for you
Yeah,
at
I
the
mean,
beginning.
don't get me wrong. I've messed around with CAD and I've done some of that stuff myself, but to get such high level quality, yeah,
Yeah,
I
yeah.
he helped quite a lot because, like I said, what he does is he's phenomenal at his work. He's one of the people's who will go to different universities to help design students and give them kind of tips and advice, because he's also a lecturer. I can't remember where, which is quite useful. But he's no, yeah, he's really good at CAD and designing things.
What if you don't have a contact like that and you just want to like yeah, but you want to start a physical product? What's the sort of like stage to get to that CAD process? And like how expensive
Uh,
would that be?
Pretty much Google, because if I didn't know him, I would have just Googled someone who could do that, and then you know, same with the factories. I never knew the people who own the factories. Never. I had no experience in that at all. And I just used Google to kind of do some research. And then once you start talking to people in that industry, then they start suggesting names, and then you can just, reach out to different people, and they usually put you on the right tracks. Um, but yeah, that for someone who kind of doesn't have those contacts, I'd say Google a variety of people, get in contact with them, and kind of see who do you think will be the best fit for you, or who seems to be the person who's going to help you out the most. Because
Yeah.
these drawings and things like that, they're not cheap. They can set you back like thousands of pounds. Um,
Hmm.
Again, I was fortunate in the sense that Matt is a family friend, so he didn't charge us crazy amounts. Whereas someone else who we don't know, who kind of would have seen, oh, it's just like a young kid who's got an idea, we can probably fleece him for quite a bit. You know, that's kind of
Yeah.
those are the pitfalls you have to look at.
How sort of like what's the sort of standard amount that these guys would take for one of these CAD projects?
Um, See, this is the thing, I don't really know off the top of my head, because it was such a long time ago. But
Yeah.
drawings can set you back hundreds of pounds. Um, and for actual prototypes and things like that, you can end up spending maybe 2.5 grand. So within that kind of region of things, maybe
Okay.
even sometimes you could, depending on the product or how many you make or things like that, you could easily spend 5,000. Um, it just depends, really. I mean, obviously these are just ballpark figures, as everything is quite different. When you're designing these products, they're not all the same. So there's different problems, or different shortcuts that you can take. So it just depends, really. But those are the kind of rough figures I would say to anyone. If you're looking to go
Yeah,
into that,
yeah.
just make sure you have some money set aside, I guess.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. How much did you spend on the prototyping phase?
Ah, that's a good question. um, do I remember? I think I spent. A, this is the problem now. I actually don't remember. I want to say maybe around the figure I just mentioned, about 2.5.
Okay.
But I don't know. I don't know if it was less. That's the thing. Um,
Yeah, yeah,
it
yeah.
could have been. It could have been more. But I again, my memory is so from that stage, it's so far back. I don't even remember much.
Yeah, yeah. All right. So, and then you transition to China. How was that transition to China? Because I've heard from Lauren Bell, who was on the podcast before. it was a really, really different process to, contacting UK and European manufacturers.
Oh yeah, it's so much more difficult because so like from the basic kind of view, there's a time difference, obviously. So that kind of plays a big factor in when you get responses or when you respond and that kind of stuff. So that can slow down the process. Um, but also, I don't know if you're familiar with most of these kind of China horror stories of when you chat to a
Yeah.
factory and they send you a perfect sample, and then you place an order and it's just complete garbage. Um, so that yeah, that's happened to us. So for example, one of our orders from China, you twist the head of the boot buddy a couple of times and then it would just pop off. So what we had to do then was open up every single boot buddy, and this was like, I mean, thousands of units we're talking here, and we'd have to essentially use a certain product that we have to allow lubrication to get into the head of the boot buddy. Because what happened was the factory weren't doing that; they were trying to cut corners to reduce
Yeah.
their kind of production times, and we had to do it ourselves. So the process was we'd cut boot buddies out of the blister packaging, and that was a big pain anyway because they're vacuum sealed. So once you open them, you can't put them back in. So we've opened them out of the packaging. We've then had to repackage them in old packaging that we bought more of, and then we had to put them back into boxes, put the boxes onto pallets, shrink wrap the pallets, and then send them out to customers such as Sports Direct and whatnot, just so that we didn't lose, that kind of respect of, oh well, these guys are, they're delivering us subpar products. Why should we carry on working with them?
Yeah.
So that was intense. I remember we did that for a long, long time. We were essentially just trying to cover our own backs, and in that we didn't even make money on some of those ones. We kind of either broke even or we only made like £1 or something ridiculous like that. So that was unfortunate, but again, it's part of the learning curve, and thankfully we found a solution and we fixed it all. But yeah,
Mm.
that's a personal experience from the Chinese horror stories of manufacturing that circulate.
Yeah. Was China before or after Dragon's Den?
It was after, but it wasn't in the immediate kind of future after Dragons Den. It's
Okay,
something
so you
that
didn't
we've
get any like help for it. That's what I'm trying to say.
yeah, I mean, we did in the sense that, so for example, Deborah helped us with the connection in China. Uh, it was another UK based company who had links to factories in China. And obviously, sometimes the Chinese factories never get it right. So we had problems there. But there was the benefit of the fact that the guys were based in the UK, so we could contact them on our time. It wasn't kind of we had to wait for a response because the time difference. So that was nice.
Yeah.
And even now, the factory we use now um, is is through Tuca, who has someone who does, you know, who specializes in kind of sourcing and helps businesses out with kind of sourcing raw materials or sourcing products and things like that. So he's helping us at the moment, and yeah, actually, the product we've got at the moment is fantastic. It's that high quality that we wanted at a cheaper price.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah, so that brings me quite nicely to where the company is right now. Uh, like, how many like orders are you getting? Like, with you got like your biggest client, Sports Direct, I saw as well.
Yeah, so I guess in terms of retailers and things like that, yes, we work with Sports Direct, and we've worked with them for quite a while. Um, so that's quite nice to be able to have that relationship with them that we've built up over the years. We've worked with other people such as what's it called, Pets at Home for our other products. So we have Paw Buddy, which is our pet
Yeah,
version. So there's different retailers we work with. Um, we kind of in that aspect we are looking to work with more retailers and things like that. However, we're just waiting to get a couple of things in line before we go back and pitch to the the supermarkets and things like that, because we have done pitches with them. People do love the product, but it's just a case of there's always a common factor of you need a SKU line. So like if you're going into their stores, they want to see a nice product range, which is something that we've now developed. So obviously we've got our Boot Buddy, our Paw Buddy, and we've got our 3 sprays, such as the Protect spray, which is like a nano coating that is used to protect your shoes from kind of rain and muddy water and things like that. So we do have sprays that complement the product. So that's nice.
Yeah.
So that's a range. But yeah, in terms of that's retail. Online we do quite well on our own website, and of course on Amazon. I guess those are the two big things for us, is our website and Amazon. I think
I thought Sports Direct would have more sort of orders coming in.
Yeah, I think Sports Direct don't get me wrong, Sports Direct is our biggest customer in terms of at one time they'll take X amount of units. But in terms of what I value in terms of getting the feedback directly from customers and things like that, the website is fantastic for that, because we have like a team of customer service people dedicated to getting back to people, so they get same day responses. Obviously, when it's Christmas time, that may change. Maybe it's like a 24-hour delay, but that's just because there's a high volume of inquiry and things like that. But yeah, that in terms of value of being able to hear direct feedback from the customers, and kind of seeing what our target market is, and seeing the majority of people who are ordering, what they're ordering, where they're ordering from, so like different countries and things like that. Yeah, our website is fantastic for that.
Yeah, that's cool. And kind of moving on from Boot Buddy, have you got any like new ideas for new businesses that you want to go into?
Obviously, I should just to quickly go back to it, but we do have different variations that are coming out of Boot Buddy. So that's great. But in terms of other businesses, there are a few other things. Yeah, other things that I definitely do want to start up. So there is, I do want to start a watch business, because I love watches. So kind of making my own brand of watches and selling those would be something that I think would be quite cool, because that's like a hobby of mine. And then I guess slowly but surely investing in other people's businesses and investing in other types of businesses, such as property and whatnot. That would be quite interesting.
Yeah, that's really cool. So yeah, this is like massively, like we've gone over for quite a long time. This is like pretty long for my sort of podcast, but it's been really interesting. So yeah, like we should probably like wrap it up there.
That's all right.
How can people firstly, I thank you so much, Arminder, for joining me on the podcast. And how can people kind of like stay in touch with you and Boot Buddy in the future?
Oh, well, I've got to say thank you very much for having me. It's been a pleasure to join the podcast today. But so in terms of reaching out to us, obviously we have our website, bootbuddy.com, where you can get in touch with us on our email links there. Obviously there's the typical social media at, so it's just Boot Buddy across Facebook, Twitter, Instagram, even TikTok now.
Jumps on the TikTok bandwagon. Yeah, TikTok's good.
Well, for us especially, because when you have your cleaning videos of like trainers and muddy boots getting cleaned really quickly, that seems to catch people's attention. So TikTok actually for us is it's quite ideal. But in terms of reaching out to us there. I mean, we have people reach out to us with business ideas or questions about the product. So I look forward to hearing from people. Regardless of what it is.
Okay, great. So yeah, thanks again, Arminder, and have a great day.
Thank you very much.
Thank you so much for listening to this episode of The Millennial Entrepreneur. It's an absolute pleasure talking to Arminder from Boot Buddy, and really inspiring to hear about his journey at such a young age as well. Yeah, crazy, and really inspiring. If you did enjoy, please be sure to leave a 5-star rating and a written review on Apple Podcasts. It really does help us out. Any feedback would be amazing as well. You can do that in the written feedback, or you can actually message me directly on the Instagram page. Be sure to follow that as well. is in the link below in the description. And yeah, thanks for listening again. My name's been Sina. I'll see you in the next episode.